My name is Ava Miller. I'm 25 years old. And for most of my life, I thought being the reasonable daughter meant swallowing pain quietly. I lived with my parents longer than I wanted to admit. Not because I was lazy. Not because I couldn't survive on my own. I had a steady job as a web developer. Paid my own bills. Bought my own groceries. Most of the time. And had been saving for years to start my own indie gaming studio one day. But since I turned 18, I had also been paying my parents $450 a month in rent to live in the same bedroom where I used to hide under the blankets as a child when my parents screamed about money. At first, I told myself it was fair. Housing was expensive. My job was only 15 minutes away. I was helping family. That was the phrase my mother loved most. Family helps family. But in our house, that sentence had always meant one thing. Ava gives. Everyone else takes. The center of that universe was my older sister, Diana. Diana was 28. Beautiful in that careless way people are when they have never been held responsible for anything. And somehow permanently forgiven before she even made mistakes. Growing up, if Diana broke Mom's favorite vase while dancing through the living room, Mom would sigh and say, "Accidents happen. Sweetheart." If I left a water ring on the coffee table, I got a 3-hour lecture about responsibility, gratitude, and respecting property. Diana dropped out of college twice. She bounced between jobs, quit some, got fired from others, and launched businesses that were basically Facebook schemes with glittery logos. My parents called her ambitious when I worked full-time, paid rent, cleaned up after myself, and helped around the house. They called me quiet. Quiet, in my family, meant convenient. Then, about a month ago, Diana called my parents sobbing. She and her husband Ben were between homes, which turned out to mean broke, evicted, and out of options. By dinner, my parents had already decided. Diana, Ben, their 2 kids, Sue and Tyler, and their yapping Pomeranian, Zeus. They were moving in. No one asked me. No one knocked on my bedroom door and said, "Ava, since you pay to live here too, are you okay with this?" They simply opened the front door and let the storm inside. The house changed overnight. Zoe was 7 and screamed like every hallway was a playground. Tyler was 4 and sticky-fingered everything he touched. Zeus peed on shoes, bass, rugs, and once, unbelievably, on my bed. Ben kept apologizing in that soft, useless voice people use when they have no intention of changing anything. "Sorry, Ava. Kids." Right. Diana didn't apologize at all. My work setup was in the spare room because I worked from home 3 days a week. Within 24 hours, the room was packed with Diana's boxes, broken lamps, trash bags full of clothes, and toys nobody seemed to own until I stepped on them. I was forced back into my bedroom, trying to code, while children pounded on my door, asking to play Roblox on my computer. The bathroom was always occupied. The kitchen looked like a crime scene made of cereal, juice, and dog hair. My things started disappearing or breaking every time I brought it up. Mom gave me the same tired smile. "They're just children, Ava. Or worse, try to be understanding. Diana is under a lot of pressure." And Ben became strange around me. Not dangerous exactly. Just defensive, watchful. One afternoon, I walked into the kitchen and asked, "Ben, are you done with the toaster?" He turned sharply, like I'd accused him of something. "I've got it handled," he snapped. Diana appeared behind him, crossing her arms. "Why are you always hovering?" I stared at them both. I asked about toast. Ben looked embarrassed for half a second, but Diana's eyes stayed cold. That was when I first felt it. Something in that house was turning against me. Through all of this, I was still paying $450 a month. Diana, Ben, their 2 kids, and their dog paid nothing. At first, I tried to be decent. They had children. They were embarrassed. Maybe this was temporary. Then my mother cornered me in my room one evening. She stood in the doorway, twisting her wedding ring the way she always did, before asking for something she planned to pretend was reasonable. Ava. Honey, she began. With Diana and her family staying here, expenses have really gone up. Groceries, utilities, everything. I already knew where it was going. She smiled weakly. We were thinking, maybe you could contribute a little more. Just until Diana and Ben get back on their feet. I looked at her. You want me to pay more rent? Because Diana's whole family is living here for free. Her face tightened. It's not free. They're family. There it was. That holy little sentence. Family. How much more, I asked. Just another $300 a month. I almost laughed. 750美元. To live in my childhood bedroom. In a house overrun with screaming kids. A dog that peed on everything. No workspace. No privacy. And no respect. I said, I'll think about it. But inside, something in me went very still. That night at dinner, Dad backed her up. We all have to do our part, he said. Cutting into his food without looking at me, Diana sat across from me, feeding Tyler little bites from her plate, pretending not to listen. Ben gave me a small smile. Thanks for understanding. Ava. Seriously. I looked at him. Then, at my sister. Then, at my parents. For the first time, I realized they had already decided I would say yes. My opinion was just a delay. Then, Sunday came. Mom announced casually, while rinsing dishes. Diana and Ben are going out Friday night. You'll watch the kids. Not asked, told. I have plans, I said. Mom turned around. What plans? As if I needed permission to exist outside that house. Just plans. Diana sighed dramatically from the table. Come on. Ava. Ben and I haven't had one night to ourselves in forever. The kids love their aunt. Everyone looked at me. Dad. Mom. Diana. Ben. 4 adults waiting for me to fold. And because I had spent my entire life being trained to keep the peace, I did. Fine, I said. Friday night. Instead of playing the game, I had waited weeks to try. I chased 2 hyper kids and 1 demon dog through the house until my back hurt and my patience was gone. Diana and Ben said they would be home by 10. They rolled in at midnight, laughing too loudly. Both clearly buzzed. Diana kicked off her heels in the hallway. Thanks, Ava. You're a lifesaver. Then she disappeared into the guest room. No apology. No money. No respect. When I finally went upstairs, exhausted, I stepped into something warm and soft beside my bed. Zeus had left me a gift. I stood there in the dark. 1 foot ruined. My room smelling like dog waste. And I started laughing. Not because it was funny, because if I didn't laugh, I was going to scream loud enough to wake the entire house. And maybe that was the moment I finally understood. This wasn't temporary chaos. This was my future, if I stayed. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of drawers opening. At first, I thought one of the kids had wandered into my room again. Then I sat up. Diana was standing at my desk, pulling open one drawer after another. For a few seconds, I just stared at her. What are you doing? She jumped so hard, she nearly dropped the stack of notebooks in her hand. Oh, she said, pressing a hand against her chest. You scared me. I swung my legs off the bed. You're going through my desk. No. She glanced around. I was looking for tape. I blinked. Tape. The kids want to make a craft. There's tape in the kitchen drawer. Well, I couldn't find it. Before I could say anything else, Ben suddenly appeared in the doorway. I swear the man had some kind of 6th sense whenever anyone questioned his wife. Everything okay in here? He asked. His voice, already defensive. Your wife is searching through my desk. Ben frowned. She said she was looking for tape. It's my room. She wasn't hurting anything. I stared at him. Would you be okay with me digging through your things? That's different. How? He stepped beside Diana. Almost protectively. We're guests here. Exactly. Guests. Not owners. Not landlords. Not people entitled to my belongings. I looked from one to the other, and felt a familiar pressure building behind my eyes. I turned and walked out. If I stayed another minute, I was going to say something I couldn't take back. That night, I headed downstairs for a snack. Halfway to the kitchen, I heard my name. I stopped. Diana was sitting at the table with my parents. You know, she was saying, Ava has always been kind of selfish. I nearly choked. Selfish. I paid rent. He babysat. I gave up my workspace. I lived in chaos so they could stay there for free. My mother sighed. She just doesn't understand how difficult things are for you right now. Diana's voice softened. I know, Mom. But she agreed to pay the extra rent. Right. I froze. I never agreed to anything. Dad nodded. It'll help. Then Diana laughed softly. She has all that money saved up for her little game company anyway. I felt my stomach twist. They were talking about my savings. Money I'd spent years putting away, skipped vacations for, worked overtime for. Then Diana lowered her voice. And honestly, Ben feels uncomfortable around her. I stopped breathing. What? My mother asked. She always seems to be around him. In the kitchen? In the living room? I don't know. It makes him uncomfortable. I actually looked behind me. I thought she had to be talking about someone else. Because there was no universe in which I had done anything inappropriate, I avoided them whenever possible. I ate dinner in my room half the time. I left the house on weekends just to escape. Yet there she was. Planting ideas. Laying foundations. Creating a story. I backed away from the hallway and returned upstairs. I wasn't hungry anymore. I lay in bed for hours, staring at the ceiling. Something had shifted. This wasn't just favoritism anymore. I was becoming the villain in their story. The next morning, Mom cornered me during breakfast. Since you agreed to the new rent amount, I'll need the first payment Friday. I almost dropped my spoon. I never agreed. Dad looked up immediately. We really appreciate your help. Sweetheart. It wasn't appreciation. It was pressure. 3 pairs of eyes landed on me. I suddenly felt 12 years old again. I didn't argue. I just ate my cereal in silence. Then Mom smiled. Oh. And Diana and Ben need someone to watch the kids this weekend. I looked up. The whole weekend. Saturday afternoon through Sunday evening. I can't. Mom frowned. Why not? I have work. You can do your computer work anytime. No. I can't. Diana rolled her eyes. Seriously. Ava. Ben sighed dramatically. We haven't had a weekend to ourselves in months. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You're asking me to babysit for almost 2 days. Family helps family. Mom said. There it was again. The sacred phrase. The family slogan. The sentence that somehow only applied to me. I already made plans. I lied. What plans? Dad asked. I looked him directly in the eye. I'm helping my friend Clara move. Mom's face hardened. Can't you reschedule? No. Diana muttered something under her breath. I caught one word. Typical. The entire table turned cold. For the first time. I didn't care. A few days later, I came home from work and found my expensive gaming headset in pieces on my floor. The cord was shredded. One ear cup was hanging by a wire. Zeus sat beside it, wagging his tail. I stood there for a long time. Then, I walked downstairs. Your dog destroyed my headset. Diana looked up from her phone. Oh, he's a puppy. It cost $200. She shrugged. What do you want me to do? Replace it. With what money? I couldn't believe her. You're serious. She stood. Maybe if you didn't spend your life playing video games, you'd understand there are more important things. I laughed. Actually laughed. The irony nearly killed me. You're giving me financial advice. Her face darkened. Ben stepped between us. Let's all calm down. No, I said quietly. I am calm. And that scared me. Because I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I was tired. Bone deep tired. That night, I overheard something even worse. Mom and Diana were talking in the living room. If she really loved this family, Diana said, she'd help with some of her savings. Mom didn't disagree. I stood there in the dark. They wanted my money, not my company, not my help, not me, just my money. That was it. That was the exact moment something inside me snapped. I walked upstairs, opened my laptop, and searched. Apartments for rent. Roommates needed. Cheap rentals. Anywhere. Anywhere but here. At 3 a.m, I sent a message to my old friend Clara. Hey. Weird question. Do you know anyone looking for a roommate? I expected an answer the next day. Instead, my phone buzzed immediately. Actually, yes. One of my roommates is moving out next month. You serious? Dead serious. He sat up in bed. For the first time in weeks, my chest loosened. The next afternoon, I met Clara after work. The apartment wasn't fancy. 2 bedrooms, small kitchen, tiny living room. But it was quiet. Beautifully. Perfectly quiet. Rent would be $575 plus utilities. More than I paid before. Less than what my parents now expected. And there were no screaming children. No barking dog. No freeloaders. I'll take it, I said immediately. Clara smiled. You look like someone just offered you freedom. Maybe she had. On my drive home, I realized something. I wasn't making plans anymore. I was making an escape. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty about it. Once I decided to leave, everything became strangely calm. Not around me, inside me. It was like I'd spent years drowning and had finally spotted the shoreline. The problem was getting there, without my family noticing. I knew exactly how they'd react if I announced I was moving out. Mom would cry. Dad would talk about loyalty and responsibility. Diana would call me selfish. Ben would stand there looking uncomfortable, while doing absolutely nothing. And somehow, by the end of the conversation, I'd probably be apologizing, so I said nothing. Operation Get Out had officially begun. The first thing I did was secure my money. After overhearing them discuss my savings, I trusted no one. I changed every password on my bank account, updated my security questions, switched to paperless statements, moved important documents into a locked folder in my work bag. I even changed the PIN on my phone. It felt ridiculous and heartbreaking. No daughter should have to protect her savings from her own family. The next challenge was moving my things without anyone noticing. I started small. A few books, winter clothes, old notebooks, extra computer equipment. Every morning before work, I carried one small box to my car. Every evening, I dropped it off at Claire's apartment. Her roommate was moving out in 2 weeks and didn't mind me storing things there. Your family sounds exhausting, Clara said one night as I unloaded another box. You have no idea. She looked at me carefully. You know this isn't normal. Right. I smiled weakly. I think I'm just starting to realize that keeping up appearances at home became its own full-time job. I still ate dinner with everyone. Still nodded through conversations. Still pretended nothing was wrong. But every day, I looked around that house differently. The toys scattered across the floor. The dishes piled in the sink. The endless noise. It no longer felt like home. It felt temporary. One afternoon, I nearly got caught. I was carrying a box to my car when Zoe suddenly appeared behind me. What's in there? Aunt Ava. I nearly dropped it. Just old stuff. She tilted her head. Are you going somewhere? Children are terrifying. No. I lied. I'm donating some things. Can I help? Not today. Sweetheart. She looked disappointed, but quickly ran off after her brother. I stood there for a full minute trying to get my heartbeat under control. Another close call came courtesy of Zeus. That dog hated secrets. Every time I carried something out of my room, he followed me barking. Eventually, I started carrying dog treats in my pocket. I bribed him into silence. It felt like I was planning a prison escape. Meanwhile, life inside the house somehow became even worse. Mom kept mentioning bills every chance she got. The electricity is so expensive this month. Groceries are costing a fortune. It's hard supporting such a big family. The message was always the same. Pay more. Give more. Sacrifice more. Dad stopped speaking to me entirely. Apparently, refusing to become my sister's personal bank account had made me the villain. And then there was Diana. One evening, I walked into the living room to grab my laptop. She was lying on the couch, scrolling through her phone. "You know," she said casually. "One day you'll understand what it means to make sacrifices for your family." I actually laughed. She sat up. "What? You're talking to me about sacrifice? Don't start." "No. I'm curious. Explain it to me." She folded her arms. "When you have children, your priorities change." "Interesting. What does that mean?" "It means I've been paying rent here since I was 18, while you've contributed exactly nothing." Her face flushed. "You don't know what I've been through." "Actually, I do. I've been living with it for a month." "You're unbelievable. And you're unemployed?" She stood. "At least I have a family." I stared at her. She said it so casually, as if I were somehow less of a person because I wasn't married with children. I suddenly realized something. No matter what I did, it would never be enough. I could pay their bills, babysit, give up my room, hand over my savings, and they'd still find another thing to demand. A few days later, Mom called a family meeting. The words alone made my stomach hurt. Everyone gathered in the living room. Dad sat in his recliner. Diana and Ben took the couch. I remained standing. Mom clasped her hands. "We need to discuss the sleeping arrangements." I immediately knew I wasn't going to like this. "The children are getting bigger," she said. Diana nodded solemnly. "They need more space." I crossed my arms, and Mom smiled nervously. "We thought it might be best if Zoe and Tyler had your room." Silence. I blinked. "You're joking." "You could move downstairs into the den." The den, a converted storage room with no windows, un ancien futon, and a washing machine on the other side of the wall? No. Everyone looked surprised. Mom blinked. "What?" "No. It would only be temporary." "No. Ava, I pay rent for my room." Dad finally spoke. "You're being unreasonable." I laughed softly. That seemed to upset him even more. "I'm being unreasonable. They're children. And I'm your daughter." Silence. No one said a word. Mom looked uncomfortable. Dad stared at the floor. Diana's expression hardened. Ben suddenly found the carpet fascinating. I realized something awful. None of them had even considered me. Not once. I was simply an inconvenience standing between them and what they wanted. "It would help the family," Mom said quietly. "No." Diana sighed dramatically. "You have all that space to yourself. Because I pay for it." "God. You're obsessed with money." "No," I said. "I'm obsessed with fairness." "You're so selfish." I looked at her. "You moved into my home. Destroyed my privacy. Pay nothing. Expect free babysitting. Let your dog ruin my things. And now you want my bedroom." She gasped. "You make it sound terrible." "Because it is terrible." Ben stood. "Let's calm down." "No," I said again. I was still calm. Terrifyingly calm. I looked around the room. At my parents. At my sister. At the man she married. At the people who supposedly loved me. And suddenly I saw them clearly. They weren't asking anymore. They were expecting, taking, assuming. I was a resource. A paycheck. A backup plan. Nothing more. "I'm not moving into the basement," I said quietly. "And this conversation is over." I turned and walked upstairs. Nobody followed me. Nobody apologized. Nobody knocked on my door later. That silence told me everything. I sat on my bed for a long time. Then I took out my phone. I texted Clara. "Any chance I can move in early? I can sleep on the couch." Her answer came almost immediately. "Absolutely. Come whenever you're ready." I stared at the message. For the first time in months, I smiled. The plan changed that night. I wasn't waiting 2 more weeks. I was leaving. As soon as possible. Because I finally understood something. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is Walk away from the people who taught you that your needs mattered least. And I was finally ready to be brave. I left on a Saturday morning. At 5 o'clock, the entire house was silent. I had packed the last of my essentials the night before my laptop. Chargers, toiletries, a few clothes, and the small box that held every notebook filled with ideas for my future game studio. Everything else had already been moved out, piece by piece. The only thing standing between me and freedom was the front door, of course. Zeus almost ruined everything. The second I carried my first bag downstairs, the little dog started barking loudly. I nearly had a heart attack. I tossed him one of the treats I'd been using to keep him quiet. He ate it, then barked again. Seriously, I whispered. Finally, I picked him up and put him in the bathroom with another treat. Not my proudest moment, but desperate times. 20 minutes later, my car was packed. I stood in my bedroom one last time. The shelves were empty. The walls looked strange without my posters. For a moment, I remembered being 12 years old, lying on this same bed, imagining the life I'd have someday. Back then, I thought I'd leave this house because I fell in love, or got some incredible opportunity. I never imagined I'd leave because my own family had made me feel unwelcome. I almost cried. Then I heard someone snoring down the hall. Diana. And suddenly, the sadness disappeared. I grabbed my keys and walked out. No note, no goodbye, just silence. As the sun came up behind me, I drove away. And for the first time in years, I could breathe. I arrived at Clara's apartment around 6 in the morning. She opened the door wearing pajamas and holding a mug of coffee. You actually did it. I nodded. She smiled. Welcome home. I almost cried again. I slept on her couch for 4 straight hours. The best sleep I'd had in months. When I finally checked my phone, it looked like a disaster. 11 missed calls. Countless messages. Mom, where are you? Ava, call me. Why is your room empty? Dad, call home immediately. Your mother is worried. Yana. Wow. Real, mature. Hope you're happy. I turned my phone off. For one beautiful afternoon, I existed in complete peace. Then guilt crept in. No matter how angry I was, they were still my family. So that evening, I turned my phone back on and called Mom. She answered immediately. Ava, where are you? I moved out. Silence. Then, you what? I'm staying with a friend. Her voice rose. You left. Without telling anyone? Yes. How could you do this to us? I closed my eyes. I had expected anger. I wasn't prepared for the hurt in her voice. We thought something terrible happened. She cried. Your father was ready to call hospitals. Mom, I'm fine. You just disappeared. I didn't disappear. I moved. You could have talked to us. I laughed softly. I tried. No. You didn't. I did. Repeatedly. Silence. You didn't listen. She started crying. You're leaving because of the rent. I'm leaving because nothing in that house was mine anymore. Ava, you wanted more money? More sacrifices. More space. And every single time, it was for Diana. Your sister has children. And I have a life. She needs us. So do I. Another silence. Then she said the sentence I'd heard my entire life. Family helps family. I took a deep breath. It has to go both ways. Mom. She didn't answer. I've been helping this family since I was 18. I'm tired. She cried harder. For a second, I almost gave in. Almost. Then I remembered the bedroom, the destroyed headset, the conversations about my savings, the way nobody had defended me. I love you, I said softly. But I'm not coming back. I hung up. A few minutes later, Diana texted me. Thanks for abandoning everyone. I replied. Thanks for moving into our parents' house and expecting me to pay for it. She didn't answer. The next few weeks were strangely peaceful. Living with Clara was easy. We respected each other's space. The apartment was quiet. I could leave my laptop on the table and know it would still be there when I came back. I could sleep. I could work. I could think. I started coding again. Started sketching ideas for my game. Started feeling like myself. Then Dad called. I almost didn't answer. Ava, he said quietly. Can we talk? Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him for coffee. The second he sat down, I knew something was wrong. He looked exhausted. A lot has happened since you left, he said. I waited. Your mother is heartbroken. I said nothing. The house isn't the same. Still nothing. Finally, he sighed. We're having trouble making the mortgage this month. There it was. Money. Always money. So, he looked shocked. We're short about $800. I stared at him. You want me to keep paying for a house I don't live in? Not paying. Helping. I almost laughed. Dad, we're family. No? He blinked. No, I'm not doing this anymore. You'd let us lose the house. You let me feel like a tenant in my own home. His face tightened. Your sister is going through a difficult time. She's been going through a difficult time for 10 years. He looked away. I suddenly understood something. Nothing had changed. They still didn't see me. They still saw a bank account. I stood up. I love you, Dad. But I'm done financing Diana's life. I left. The messages afterward became ugly. Diana called me selfish, then cruel, then heartless. Ben sent a long message about the children missing me. Mom cried. Dad became angry. Relatives called. Apparently, I had abandoned my family. Then my cousin Lily called. You know they lied. Right. I froze. What? They aren't losing the house. I stared at the wall. Dad got a bonus at work last month. I said nothing. And apparently, your parents have been helping Diana pay off gambling debts. I nearly dropped my phone. Gambling. That's what I heard? I closed my eyes. All those sacrifices. All those arguments. All that guilt. And none of it had been about survival. They had simply chosen her. Again. That night, I blocked everyone. Mom, Dad, Diana, Ben, everyone. I kept one thing. The kids' birthdays. I still send Zoe and Tyler cards every year. None of this was their fault. As for me, life kept moving. I worked harder than ever. I kept saving money. I finally started developing my indie puzzle game. And a few months later, I met someone at a programming meetup. His name was Ethan. He made me laugh. He respected boundaries. And when I told him my family's story, he didn't ask why I left. He asked how I survived. That was the difference. Sometimes people think cutting off family makes you cold. It doesn't. Sometimes it saves your life. Because some people don't love you as a person. They love your usefulness. And the day you stop being useful, they call you selfish. I don't know what will happen to my parents. I don't know if Diana ever changed. Honestly, I stopped wondering. Because for the first time in my life, I chose myself. And it turned out that leaving wasn't losing my family. It was finally finding my future.